I was raised at a high school called Martin Luther High School, where both my parents were teachers. When it was time for me to go to primary school, there was no primary school where we were living, and the closest primary school was about 10 kilometers away. To this day, I don't know why my parents didn't just commute back and forth and take me to school. They put me in boarding school at the age of 6. This was my very first exposure to really poor nutrition. Kids that I used to go to boarding school with would collapse during assembly because of hunger, because they haven't had any food to eat. And the stark contrast between the meals, the lavish meals that we enjoyed over weekends when we went home, compared to the food that we were served in the boarding school, really, really stuck with me as a child. Since I was a child, I have always been on a quest to discover my true purpose in life. This quest actually led me to resign from my high-paying job in corporate banking and start my business called Cooking with Fortune, teaching people what I know and what God has gifted me with. I knew that I didn't want to open a restaurant. I knew that I didn't want to do any catering or anything like that. I really knew that I wanted to use my gift to make a difference and to create impact. So I teach people how to cook. I teach people from all walks of life. When an ex-colleague of mine who runs an orphanage asked me if I could take in 3 girls from the orphanage to teach them how to cook, obviously at no cost. And she explained to me that there was a real need for the caregivers of orphanages to learn to cook the food in a way that it really retains the nutrition, because they have access to very little produce. And in most cases, they boil everything for hours and throw away the water that has all the vitamins and minerals. So this made me realize that there was a need for nutrition training in the areas of orphanages, ECD centers, and schools. Further exploration made me realize the high nutritional value that our indigenous foods have, and that those two could actually work together. Recent studies have shown that 1.4 million Namibians, almost half of our population, are experiencing acute food insecurity. I believe that if we shift our focus to empowering communities to grow, harvest, and process indigenous food, to not only for their own consumption, but also to sell, to improve their livelihoods, that we can lower insecurity in this country. Namibia is incredibly rich in indigenous produce everywhere you go in our country. I'm just going to talk about 3 examples tonight. In the Kwisip River, you find where the Topnar people live, grows the Ngara melon. It grows in a thorny bush in the river. This Ngara melon is incredibly rich in oils, in fats, in crude proteins, in sugar, and in fiber. Not only that, but the pulp of the actual melon can actually be used to make porridge. Another example, in the Kavango East region of our country, grows the rosewood bean. It makes that beautiful timber that the Kavango people sell. These beans are incredibly rich in nutrients as well. Very high in protein, carbohydrates, sugar. It's got minerals such as calcium and magnesium, and it's also very high in vitamin B. In the same region, we also find the mangeti fruit. This is also high in proteins, in carbohydrates, in vitamin B and E, as well as other minerals as well. So why do I want to preach this song of we can lower food insecurity with using our indigenous foods? Like I mentioned earlier, we will not only improve the health of our people, we will also improve the livelihoods of our people. Indigenous foods are incredibly resilient to the climate because they are adapted to the environment that they grow in, which means that they are resistant to floods and droughts. They also require very low input in terms of water, in terms of fertilizers. And then the important thing is really that indigenous food help us to preserve our cultural heritage, to teach our children what is the food that we grew up with. There's so many stories behind the food that we grew up with, how it is prepared, and more importantly, the medicinal values. The old people will always tell you, if you eat this thing, it will solve this problem. If you drink this thing, it will solve this problem. It will also strengthen our local food systems, which means that we are not reliant on the global foods. It also means that we are resilient to global shocks. If something happens in the world and we can't get wheat, at least we can solve for ourselves. How are we going to approach this problem? Culinary promotion is one such way. Culinary promotion is basically telling the stories behind indigenous foods, where they grow, where they come from, and what we use them for. I myself am working on such a project at this moment. I'm working on a television series that will see me visit every single region of Namibia, all 14 regions, where I will go into the communities, discover the indigenous produce that goes there, talk to the people of the communities, and see how they prepare it and how they consume it. At the end of each episode, I will prepare a delicious meal with those very ingredients and have a long table dinner with the people from that community. I am hoping that this project will showcase what Namibia has to offer in terms of indigenous produce. I am hoping that it will encourage investment in the areas of harvesting and processing indigenous food. Another way that we can make this come to life is through school feeding programs. A lot of World Food Program actually facilitates a lot of school feeding programs across Namibia. Incorporating indigenous foods into those school feeding programs will teach our children what we have available, as well as teaching them information about these foods. Nutrition training is teaching the people what are the nutritional benefits of indigenous foods. Because modernization has taken away the culture of eating what grows indigenously in our country. But if we understood what the nutritional value is of these ingredients, supporting smallholder farming, this is basically teaching smallholder farmers how to grow vegetables, how to grow the indigenous produce, giving them training, tools, and seeds to facilitate this process. Supporting local markets. There are a lot of people selling marula oil, selling all of these products made from indigenous produce. Are we buying them? This is how we can solve this problem. I want to tell you of a success story in South Africa. This guy, I heard about him at a conference. He started this company called Wakanda Food Accelerator. His name is Miles Makeba Kubeka. Beautiful name. He is basically an independent business accelerator. And what he does is he really offers disruptive solutions to foodpreneurs, farmpreneurs, agripreneurs, anybody who is solving for food security or for the future of food. And what he basically does is he brought together a group of people who can facilitate this process. And he basically takes their product from farm to shelf. Through offering them shared working spaces, shared kitchens where they can process the food. So he basically facilitates the entire process. Through this, through his business, they've actually put a lot of products on the shelf. I'm just naming a few here. One is called Gogo's Morojo, which is a wild spinach that grows in South Africa that they can and now sell in the shop. He's also mobilized the Mopani Queens. The company's called Mopani Queens, and they make like really modern snacks from Mopani worms. And then there's more nutritional foods, which comes from the moringa plant, which we also have in our country. And they make teas and protein powders. This can only happen if we all come together as a people. And it starts with you. What can you do to make this come to life? I mentioned supporting local markets. We are very quick to go buy a baobab powder in a fancy shop that offers all these protein benefits when this tree grows up north in our country and we have access to the powder, but we buy it beautifully packaged and nicely labeled. Are we buying the marula oils that are put in the little White Horse whiskey bottles at the markets? Another thing we can do is really speaking to our children about our culture, about our heritage, and making them proud, and making eating indigenous food cool again, because it is not cool to eat indigenous food. Backyard gardening. If you go into your regions and the communities that you come from, get the seeds from there, plant the things in your backyards, and then you can have access to them. Mobilizing your communities. This is really, when we move to the urban areas, we forget where we come from. And this is really going back there, finding out what can I do to better the lives of the people from my community? How can I mobilize them? How can I help them to harvest indigenous foods, process, sell it? How can I help them take it to the market? Speak to the local authorities. What can I do to help making the lives of these people better? My talk is dedicated to my friend, Maria Shipapo. Maria was one such a person. Maria is a geochemist. She decided that she's going to use her expertise and her studies in her village, where she comes from, in Nakavango. So she moved back to Rundu. Maria opened a laboratory called Mist Agricultural Laboratory, where she was doing soil analysis to help people with agriculture by helping them what grows best in that soil. She was collecting rainwater for use during drought, because up north in Namibia, when it's rainy season, it floods. And then when the rain stops, we have a drought. So she was trying to solve for, can we not collect the water and then have access to water during the drought? Most importantly, Maria was harvesting and processing indigenous produce to make it available out of season. She made protein powders, energy bars, teas, porridges from the mangeti fruit and from the rosewood bean. Maria died way before her time. She died on the 23rd of August at the age of 37 from a heart attack. Maria's efforts to find funding for her projects were futile, as she was told that her ideas are too advanced. So, rest in peace, my friend. Your work will not go in vain. Thank you.